Hello everyone. Hope you're blessed by my videos while you're watching my two previous videos. So henceforth, so hope it's a blessing. The reference I wanted to give you about the sinful state. So how different this crucifixion was. So I don't want to spend more time on that again and again, because all these crucifixions, whatever we saw, the senses of crucifixion and the resurrection would be completely meaningless if this one man, Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection, is so meaningful to us. So all the death of all these people, the prophets and the Peter's witnesses, and they get the inspiration, that boldness they get is from the resurrection of Jesus. That's why these people, Peter and all the apostles were on the upper room. They were praying inside, hiding from everyone, from people like Saul, who had permission to kill all the Christians. Suddenly he gets converted. The rest of his life he dedicates to this mystery of resurrection. So all these saints I was talking about would have been vain if there was no this crucifixion and death. And if anyone, I'm going to dedicate this the remaining part of the video, just to make it very interesting, to give you some of the theories which there will be conspiracies, but before I forget, the two things I want to tell you. Don't forget to subscribe for this my YouTube channel, and click on the icon, the bell icon, so that you get the updates, the reminders and everything. So please do that. And the reference I wanted to give you about Paul is that, but God demonstrated his own love for us in this: while we were sinners, still sinners, Christ died for us. Romans chapter 5 verses 8. So that is very important. So Jesus didn't die when we were holy, but Jesus died for us even when we were sinners, just for that simple circle of love where we have to take our part. And for this resurrection is not only the Peter and his disciples, and not only Paul and all his followers, but each and every one of them. Peter, he was not an educated theologian, unlike Luke, who was a doctor, or Paul, who is educated in Rome. But these people are simple fishermen, but they get that boldness on this faith of death and resurrection. That's why Paul says he establishes in his letter to the Romans the humanity and divinity of Jesus, that humanity by David and his divinity by resurrection. So now there are, of course, some of these theories are well known. You can research on it. I'm not going to name and shame all the things, because I don't have time for that. I have taken quick references so that you get some information about that. You can do the research. So one of the theory about the first theory, but I'm not going to give the references, everything, biblical references. I'm just going to tell you the events, and you know where they are. Mostly it's in all the synoptic gospel, Matthew, Mark and Luke, and also in John. Like in Luke's, there are some events in Luke's gospel. There are some events in John's gospel which are not in the synoptic gospels. So I'm just giving them in order of the occurrence. The first interesting theory which says Jesus didn't die and resurrect is that it's called as a replacement theory. So they said that at some point they replaced Jesus. So it was not Jesus who carried the cross. It was not Jesus who died on the cross. So that was one of the theories that that was there among the people. So now, how this? I need not. It's not a rocket science to prove this theory is wrong. So if you are going through the whole event from arrest of Jesus till his death, there's even after the death till the burial of Jesus, there's no way they could have or Jesus would have replaced himself or asked someone to replace him. the crucifixion itself is as a terrible event. No one will go. It's almost saying that, okay, instead of him going for hanging, I will go for hanging, the punishment to hang. So that's terrible. The first thing is, as always, is arrest. He couldn't have replaced there, because his disciples were with him. Who betrayed him? Judas is one of them. So, and he got silver coins for that as well. He was paid for betraying Jesus. And if he had gone and kissed the wrong person and they have arrested the wrong person, there were Jews with them. So I wouldn't give money for someone, and that guy goes and betrays someone else and say, oh, this is Jesus. Then they would have, Judas would have been in trouble. And also we have Peter and all the disciples there. They would have told, there's no way they could have replaced Jesus there, or Jesus would have escaped, because Jews knew whom they want to kill, and they know it was Jesus, and Jesus was with them. That's why he, even in his trial, he said, I was among you, preaching, teaching, and doing miracles. Why didn't you arrest me at that time? So it's there. Then in his trial, he has Caiaphas, Annas, and we have Pontius Pilate. The trials he goes through with them, and definitely they are not fools. In a Sanhedrin where he was tried, and the high priest, I don't think so. They were the people who paid Judas. So Judas betrayed, and if he's going to stand in the Sanhedrin, there's a wrong person, and high priest is inquiring or questioning a wrong person. Then there's no point in that court hearing at all. So no way they would have replaced it there, or in front of Pontius Pilate, so who sentenced Jesus to death. So we also read Pilate's wife sending a word, be careful with that man. So definitely Pilate wouldn't have sentenced a wrong person. If Jesus was replaced there, Pilate would have known. And also we see that Pilate presenting Jesus and Barabbas. So if he had said, okay, whom do you want me to release, Barabbas or Jesus, the people would have seen, oh, this is not Jesus, this is someone else. If they can recognize Barabbas, they could have recognized Jesus, because when Jesus made the triumph entry, everyone shouted, Hosanna, son of David, and everything. So they recognized. So no way at that time Jesus must have escaped, because the scourge. Then when he was handed over to the Roman soldiers to be punished, well, no one could have replaced him there, because remember, the sentence was the responsibility of crucifixion was given to a centurion. So centurion is in charge of 100 people, and these people know exactly what they are doing. So as we read in the census I was giving, the data I was giving, per day they were crucifying 500 Jews. It's not simple. So they know inside out of crucifixion. They know, and the punishment of mistake on this execution will be surely death. So I would imagine if they have replaced Jesus, Pontius Pilate hands over Jesus, and they are scourging someone else, and obviously Jews must have checked out on that, or Pontius Pilate had found out later. I'm sure all those Roman soldiers would have been crucified after Jesus. So, sorry, we crucified a wrong person. So there's no way he could have replaced it there. Then going on, he's carrying the cross, patibulum, to Calvary, and on the way he meets the women of Jerusalem, and they were crying, they were weeping, because it was Jesus. If Jesus had been replaced there, then definitely I don't think so the women of Jerusalem will be crying. Instead, they would have been cheerful. They were saying, thank God it's not Jesus. Now, the women of Jerusalem knew that was Jesus. Unless Jesus has told you go and act or something, then that makes Jesus a liar. So, or whatever he prophesied and everything, him foretelling his crucifixion and death and resurrection, then makes Jesus a biggest fraud in the whole history of mankind, and all the deaths and everything follows that, becomes April Fool kind of thing. So there is no way this there could have been a replacement there. Then he goes, they crucify him. Suppose, let's say he was replaced before crucifixion. There's no way, because the whole people, the whole city was gathered there, because he was one of the important political prisoner that is going to be crucified there. So in John's gospel, in Matthew's gospel, we see high priests, the Jews, the priests, everyone mocking at Jesus. The soldiers, they were, you see, they were mocking. Everyone were mocking at Jesus when he was hanging on the cross, and the passers-by were mocking when he said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. He said, let's see where Eliah is coming to rescue him. So we had two thieves crucified on him, on either side of Jesus. So both of them speaking to Jesus as well. And so there's no way there could have been a replacement. Let alone that, I forgot as well, during the trial of Jesus, Peter followed him at a distance. That's what the Gospels say. So why would Peter follow the trial of someone else? And coming back to the crucifixion itself, so who was on the foot of the cross? Mary, mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Mary and another Mary, and it gives those women were with him from Galilee. That's what the Gospel says. These women were with him from Galilee. That means throughout his ministry, these women were there. So they know exactly who he is. So if it was someone else, why would they stand there? And also his disciple John was there. So that's why Jesus says, behold your mother and behold your son. So there's no way they would have been happy to see someone else being crucified there, unless Jesus told them, look, I've escaped, they are replacing me with someone else. So there's no way they could have replaced him. So the whole point that Jesus didn't die on the cross, according to this theory, is completely unacceptable. So we have all these evidences to say, no, it was Jesus who died on the cross. And they know exactly, as I told you, if the Romans had made a mistake, especially in the execution, then you remember, one can be cheated or two can be cheated. It was a centurion who usually takes charge of this crucifixion, centurion who's in charge of 100 people. Not all the 100 people would have done the same mistake. Not the Pilate would have known, because he's a political figure, and the high priest and all the Jews wanted Jesus to be killed. That is very important. They want Jesus to be crucified. End of the story. So if they let Jesus escape, then they are at risk. And also if the soldier goes and tells Pilate, there's a big mistake, we crucified the wrong person, then the high priest will question Pilate for his mistake. So there would have been a big fight between the Jews and the Romans, and that would have been a very awkward situation. So that theory, that's how we deal with that theory. The next theory is called as the swoon theory. Swoon means becoming faint. According to this swoon theory, they say that Jesus actually didn't die on the cross. he fainted on the cross, when the soldier we read we read the soldier dip vinegar and showed it to Jesus before he says it's finished. So they say that that's a kind of anesthetic for Jesus to reduce his pain and everything. Of course, they went and buried him in the grave. The coolness and the myrrh and all the things healed him, kind of things. They reduced his pain, and he escaped the tomb. Well, it's not a rocket science how to defend this. Well, Joseph of Arimathea, he's one of the leaders of the synagogue, or the Sanhedrin. So there is no way, the first thing you have to know that one of the soldiers was a witness to this, and we read that what he told was true, and he knows what he's saying, and that's what we read in the gospel. So he goes and breaks one of the prisoners, and he breaks the other, because he didn't break the legs of Jesus, because he said he's already dead. So in order to confirm that, another guy, one of the soldiers, pierces with a lance. So what happens is that's a clear sign that Jesus died, and he goes and reports it to Pontius Pilate to say Jesus has died. So it's a confirmation, it's a medical report to say yes, he has died. And Jesus' mother is there, and all his disciples are there. The whole city is there. The high priest and all the Jews, religious leaders were there. So they confirmed that Jesus died. Only after after Pilate confirming that Jesus was dead, he was surprised that he died early. Then when Joseph of Arimathea asks for the body of Jesus, he confirms that he is dead. So he has a death certificate to say Jesus is dead. Then he lets them bury Jesus. So there's no way Jesus would have died. Well, now the other theory which cannot be supported is because, let's say, why would they bury him in a tomb, private? So according to this theory, they also say that the reason why they buried him, they took him to the private tomb rather than a public cemetery, is that so he can escape that. Okay, now let's take this whole scenario. Here is a man who was scourged, and he hasn't eaten for so long, and he's been nailed on the cross. And now we read in the Gospels that the high priests and all the people of Sanhedrin went to Pilate and said, we want to place the Roman guard. I don't want to go in detail about this. The Roman guards can be 120 or 60 in multiples. Now, Jesus, after all these pains and everything, remember, he was wrapped in a linen shroud. So he has to untie himself from the shroud, then roll over the tombstone and fight all the Roman soldiers. And just after that, he meets 7 miles away from Jerusalem, on the road to Emmaus, he meets 2 of his disciples. Okay, is it really possible for a man? Actually, Jesus would have done another miracle there, to be honest, to do all those things. His whole point of him, all this gospel and everything, talking about the resurrection, it would be meaningless and could be completely a fraud if that had happened. To roll that tomb, it's not a very simple thing. It's such a huge, it's a tomb, human in a rock. That's what we read. So it's a big stone that will be rolled over. Why? Because they don't want the tomb robbers to steal the dead body. So as I said, like the crucified people, they used to bury them with the nails and everything. So they used to come and steal the nails and some of the things, as you can, myrrh and all those things they kept. Joseph of Arimathea has buried him with lots of this incense, and they are very expensive because he was a rich man. So in order to avoid the tomb robbers, they rolled a huge stone to the tomb. So how can he roll the stones from inside, not from outside, inside? And already his hands and legs were nailed and nail holes. It's only not even hardly 3 days. He wouldn't have healed that much. He didn't undergo a surgery inside the tomb. So the scourging and everything, carrying the cross, then crown of thorns, he must have been, I don't know, he would have been weak there, to be honest, because he wouldn't have been eating all the time, because from the arrest onwards till the crucifixion, I don't think so Jesus had anything to eat. So all this wouldn't have made, of course he would have made him faint, but remember, the Roman gods, the chief priests and everyone, they were specific. They wanted a god. So what they said is, the Jews shouldn't, the followers, Jesus' disciples shouldn't say, steal the body and say, oh, Jesus resurrected. So in order to confirm that they don't want to steal the body, they placed Roman gods. Roman gods, as I told you, the Roman gods are very, very disciplined, and someone sleeping on the duty is 100% death. So you can't say, oh, sorry, I slept. And even if they were sleeping, as I told, a watch means 60 to 120. So let's say in a watch, all of them were sleeping, and Jesus, imagine Jesus rolling the stone, they would have woken up by the noise of the stone rolling. I don't think so. Jesus carried the stone and kept that side, and God, and let's say even all the soldiers woke up, he would have fought with all the soldiers, a sword fight, and escaped. And why would he go and meet those two disciples on the way to Emmaus? He could have gone directly to the apostles or disciples where they were hiding. Rather, he appeared to two people in Emmaus, and when the disciples went to Emmaus later, he appears to the all his disciples there. So there is no way this can be possible that Jesus didn't die, or he was swooned, as they call it in this theory. So they're searching. They wanted to make sure that he was buried. So then Jesus, that makes Jesus a liar again. The whole gospel is a lie. So that's what I would say. The swoon theory can be, you can't trust the swoon theory for all these reasons. That theory has been there for quite some time, but he was made to appear that he's dead. So that's what the term they use for the swoon theory. He was made to appear, so he really didn't die. So the Romans helped him to escape. Why would the Romans help him to escape? What advantage they have to let Jesus free? Because if they let Jesus free, then they become enemies of Jews who really wanted Jesus to die. So that is that theory doesn't stand to win at all. Otherwise, the women would have done all the things whatever the disciples did. After that, all these martyrs and all the people who died becomes meaningless. Then, if Jesus didn't die at that time, then when did he die? There's a question mark there. Okay, let's say according to the swoon theory, Jesus didn't die that day. Then when did he die? Where did he go? Well, I don't want to go into that. So they said he went to Egypt, then from there to Himalayas. Well, that's a theory by itself. I just don't want to go deeper into that. There are so many skeptics who talk about that. that one question alone sorts this whole issue. If Jesus didn't die at that time, then when did he die? So does that mean that all this, whatever we are doing is a fake? Okay, so there's some more theory which I will come back in the next video. Hope you're enjoying these sessions. It's just some information which I thought I will share. Don't forget, please subscribe to this channel. And in the coming weeks, you're going to have very, very important, very interesting facts about things. One of the things I'm going to talk about, the Shroud of Turin, in which I'm specialized about. Maybe in the next session I will show you the replica of the shroud. I'm not going to show the entire shroud, but I'm just going to show you the replica of the shroud, a smaller version of that, so you know what exactly I'm talking about. Maybe when I'm talking about the shroud, then I'll explain all these theories also more in detail. Until then, thank you very much for listening. Stay blessed, and I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and also click the bell icon. Thank you very much. God bless.